All right, some breaking news. President Trump threatening now to slap sanctions on Russia following a massive missile and drone attack on Ukraine's energy infrastructure overnight. The president says the move would be aimed at bringing Russia to the negotiating table for talks on ending the war in Ukraine. Trump writing on Truth Social, based on the fact that Russia is absolutely pounding Ukraine on the battlefield right now, I am strongly considering large-scale banking sanctions and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire and final settlement agreement on the peace deal is reached. He also adds, to Russia and Ukraine, get to the table right now before it's too late. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky providing some details about that Russian strike across his country. He says Russia fired nearly 70 missiles and close to 200 attack drones targeting Ukraine's infrastructure. It comes as Zelensky says he will travel to Saudi Arabia Monday and meet with the Crown Prince, but says he will stay on to hold talks with U.S. officials on ending the three-year war with Russia. Meanwhile, about 240,000 Ukrainian nationals living in the United States are nervously waiting to find out if they could have their temporary legal status revoked by the Trump administration. They were welcomed to the U.S. after Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. If their legal status is revoked, they could then be deported. Joining us now, Andrij Dobriansky, the Director of Communications and Media for the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America. Boy, we've got a lot to talk about. Let's start with the potential of Russian sanctions and this breaking news at this hour.
Well, we don't know anything about any sanctions because this was a social media tweet. Nothing came out of the State Department. Nothing came out of the Department of Treasury. We do know that on February 27th, sanctions that were issued last year were extended for a year by the order of the State Department. But again, this is very similar to what we've been listening this entire hour about tariffs. One day they're on, one day they're off. Nothing about increased sanctions for the last month in the conversations that we've heard from President Trump. And all of a sudden, there's a social media tweet. We'd like to see something more specific. And in response to what the president put out, Ukraine has made known that they have a list of over 100 financial institutions that could be sanctioned immediately by the United States if they so choose.
What more can you share about this latest Russian strike overnight, the details of it, and the damage done?
The biggest thing is the disappointment and the, frankly, shame as an American. The fact that the United States has decided to cut and run in the middle of a war. This isn't just leaving Afghanistan when you were doing security operations and nation building. This is in the middle of a hot war. The United States said, you know what? We're not going to let you know when the missiles and drones are being shot out and launched from Russia. That's what the United States has done. They have stopped early detection assistance, giving that to Ukraine. Also, many of these positions, they would have been struck by U.S.-made munitions, even in the last couple of weeks, had not the United States flipped the switch and said there's no more access to United States weapons that can hit those locations anymore. So that's really the sad part. In terms of what happened last night, you heard from President Zelensky, over 70 missiles, scores of drones hitting areas deep into the west. The Ternopil Oblast had a energy station targeted. This is something that President Zelensky has spoken since 2022. Can we get a ceasefire agreement just on civilian energy plants? And that hasn't come through, and that's something that he has reiterated today.
Finally, Andrij, the 240,000 Ukrainian nationals currently in the U.S., the president says he's considering revoking their temporary protected status. What are you hearing from those you're in contact with, and in terms of how they prepare for that?
No, there is no preparation. And this is similar to what's happened to other temporary protected status people. We heard during the campaign that those are the people that were made fun of by President Trump and Vice President Vance. Vice President Vance doesn't consider people with temporary protected status here as legals. In fact, this is a status offered to people whose current homeland has an untenuous security position. So even right now, there are consular duties that the United States would not offer to people applying for status in the United States within Ukraine. They have to travel to Warsaw. They have to communicate with U.S. consulates in Frankfurt to process these applications. What we know is that people have been here and they've been welcomed by the United States. They would like to contribute more to the job workforce and paying taxes if the United States wouldn't kick them out. So undignified.
Well, a lot happening with this conflict right now. Andrij, I appreciate you stopping by as always. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.